The rain came down over central Florida like the highway itself was trying to wash away a secret. Trucks rolled past dark pine woods, neon motel signs buzzed over wet asphalt, and lonely men drove through the night believing the road was safe. But between 1989 and 1990, those highways became the hunting ground of Aileen Wuornos, a rough-looking blonde drifter whose name would later become one of the darkest in American true crime. Aileen Wuornos was not the polished, hidden kind of killer people expected from crime novels. She was visibly battered by life, with short, messy blonde hair, pale skin, tired eyes, a hard mouth, and the restless energy of someone who had spent too many nights surviving outside the rules of ordinary life. By the time the killings began, she was in her early 30s, drifting through Florida as a sex worker, sleeping in cheap motels, bars, cars, and whatever corner of the world would hold her for one more night. Her childhood had already been a crime scene without police tape. Born in Michigan in 1956, Aileen grew up with abandonment, instability, alleged abuse, and the kind of loneliness that hardens a child before adulthood even begins. Long before Florida ever knew her name, she had learned that safety was temporary, trust was dangerous, and survival often meant becoming harder than the people trying to hurt you. By her teenage years, Aileen was already drifting further away from anything that resembled a normal life. She spent time homeless, wandered through unstable environments, and learned very quickly that survival often depended on reading danger before it arrived. The loneliness inside her slowly hardened into anger, and the anger slowly became part of her identity. Years later, Florida became the center of her world. The highways, truck stops, bars, motels, and roadside diners gave her places to sleep, people to meet, and temporary ways to survive. But beneath the neon lights and humid nights was a woman becoming emotionally exhausted by fear, instability, and constant danger. Then in 1986, Aileen met Tyria Moore at a bar near Daytona Beach. Tyria was younger, brunette, quieter, and emotionally softer than Aileen, and the relationship quickly became the most important thing in Aileen's life. To her, Tyria represented loyalty, love, and the possibility of finally not being alone anymore. Their relationship quickly became unstable beneath the surface. The two women drifted between motels, bars, roadside rooms, and borrowed vehicles while trying to survive day by day. To strangers, they looked like another struggling couple moving through Florida, but behind closed doors, fear, dependency, emotional instability, and financial desperation were slowly consuming everything around them. On November 30th, 1989, Aileen crossed paths with Richard Mallory, a 51-year-old electronics store owner from Clearwater, Florida. He picked her up along the highway late at night, and according to Aileen, the encounter turned violent. Days later, Mallory's abandoned Cadillac was discovered, and his body was later found in a wooded area with multiple gunshot wounds. Aileen later claimed she acted in self-defense, insisting Mallory had attacked her first. Prosecutors, however, believed the killing was motivated by robbery and argued that Aileen had deliberately murdered him before stealing his car and belongings. That conflict between survival and criminal intent would eventually become the center of one of America's most controversial true crime cases. But Richard Mallory was only the beginning. Over the next year, men connected to Florida highways began vanishing one after another, leaving behind abandoned vehicles, scattered belongings, and crime scenes hidden deep inside wooded areas. Investigators slowly realized they were not dealing with isolated killings anymore, but with a predator moving silently through the highways of Florida like a storm nobody could predict. The names kept growing on police reports: David Spears, Charles Carskadden, Troy Burress, Charles Humphreys, Walter Antonio, and Peter Seams, whose body was never officially found. Each victim had crossed paths with Aileen somewhere along Florida's roads before disappearing forever. The highways that once represented freedom and escape were slowly becoming symbols of fear. Aileen and Tyria continued drifting from motel to motel while investigators closed in around them. To strangers, they looked like another struggling couple trying to survive life on the road, but behind closed doors, paranoia and emotional instability were slowly consuming everything around them. The pressure of the murders, the fear of arrest, and the constant uncertainty began pushing Aileen closer toward collapse. The investigation finally accelerated after Peter Seams disappeared in 1990. Witnesses connected two women to a car crash involving Seams's vehicle, and detectives suddenly had real leads pointing toward Aileen and Tyria. Fingerprints, pawn shop records, witness descriptions, and abandoned cars slowly connected together like pieces of a nightmare nobody could stop anymore. Police eventually located Tyria Moore and convinced her to cooperate with investigators. They understood that Aileen trusted Tyria more than anyone else alive, and that emotional connection became the key to breaking the case open. Detectives arranged recorded phone calls between the two women, hoping Aileen would confess while trying to protect the person she loved most. During the recorded conversations, Tyria pleaded with Aileen to tell the truth and reassured her that everything would somehow be okay. Emotionally exhausted and terrified of losing Tyria forever, Aileen began admitting responsibility for the murders. What investigators captured on tape was not only a confession, but the sound of a woman emotionally unraveling in real time. On January 9, 1991, police arrested Aileen Wuornos at the Last Resort, a biker bar near Daytona Beach. After months of fear, disappearances, and highway murders, the woman investigators had been searching for was finally in custody. America's most infamous female highway killer had officially been caught. The trial quickly became one of the most heavily watched true crime cases in America. Prosecutors described Aileen as a cold-blooded predator who targeted vulnerable men along Florida highways, while the defense argued that years of abuse, trauma, fear, and survival had shaped the woman sitting inside that courtroom. Public opinion became deeply divided between seeing her as a monster or seeing her as someone destroyed long before the murders began. Tyria Moore eventually testified against Aileen in court, becoming one of the prosecution's most important witnesses. For investigators, her testimony helped explain how the crimes unfolded. But for Aileen, the woman she loved now represented the final collapse of the only emotional connection she believed she still had left. The jury eventually found Aileen Wuornos guilty, and she was sentenced to death. Over time, she received multiple death sentences connected to the murders, while interviews from prison revealed a woman becoming increasingly unstable, paranoid, angry, and emotionally exhausted. The highways that once gave her freedom had ultimately led her toward a prison cell and an execution date. On October 9, 2002, Aileen Wuornos was executed by lethal injection in Florida. Her story became one of the most debated and psychologically disturbing cases in American true crime history because it forced people to confront uncomfortable questions about violence, trauma, survival, and responsibility. Even decades later, her crimes continue haunting the highways, motel rooms, and dark roadside places where the story first began. If there's another true crime story you want us to investigate next, tell us in the comments section below. Whether it's a serial killer, an unsolved mystery, a mafia empire, a cult leader, or a case that still keeps people awake at night, your suggestion might become the next illustrated investigation on this channel. And if you'd like to support the channel, you can support us directly via MPESA using account number +254 0110 969 055 under the name Alexander Wangari, while viewers outside Kenya can use services like Western Union, Remitly, Sendwave, and other global money transfer services that support MPESA transfers. Thank you for supporting the Illustrated Detective and helping us bring more true crime stories to life.